Well, howdy diddly dandy there. Chums, 'tis I, Captain of the Steves, and today, chums, for you guys in the viewerverse, I want to do a little bit of a talks video on underground bases. Now, I did say that I wanted to make this video on underground bases, so firstly, I want to show you a clip of this lady here. Her name is Katherine Fitz. Now, this is a little bit of a snippet of what she said on the Tucker Carlson show. Hopefully I'm not going to get flagged. I'm going to keep myself on the screen. I've got my music playing, so hopefully that's going to disguise it a little. But I'm just going to hit play. This is her talking about when she served under the Bush administration, and she came across some very oddness when it comes to how much money was spent on underground facilities and cities and bases and travel systems.
In one, I think the thing that got me to read Three Body Problem was Obama made some cryptic comment about people ought to read this book. It was like, hint, hint, here are the problems I'm dealing with. And the Three Body Problem is about other bodies that come into the solar system, and it's impossible to predict their trajectory. And then when they do, they create this catastrophic flooding and earthquakes and all this other stuff. Anyway, but I think that whether it's a pole shift, magnetic pole shift is one of the, theories of what causes these events. But there is a history of near extinction events. And one of the things that I've looked at, because I'm trying to figure out, between fiscal 1998 and fiscal 2015, there were 21 trillion of undocumentable adjustments in the U.S. government. If you go to our website, missingmoney.solera.com, we have years and years of documentation, including the government financials that show this. And so the question is, where's all this money going? And one of the things I've looked at in the process of looking at where all this money is going is the underground base and city infrastructure and transportation system that's been built. And
I'm sorry?
Yes. So we have built an extraordinary number of underground bases and supposedly transportation systems. Some of these are some of these are documented as part of the national security infrastructure. I think there are many more. So
in the United States?
In the United States, and all over the world. But from 2021 to 2023, I took one of the smartest subscribers in the Celebes Report network, and he and I spent 2 years collecting all the data and all the allegations on underground bases. And then we systematically went through and tried to estimate our guess. This is totally a guess of how many underground bases, both underground in the United States, but also underground under the ocean around the United States. And our estimate was 170.
This is one of the underground bases.
With the transportation network connecting them.
And what would be the purpose?
The purpose, if you thought you were going to get a near extinction event, so to me, there are two purposes. You have so many activities going on that you need to keep secret, that you're basically building the capacity to, for example, if you're doing a secret space program, you need to platform it from things that can't be seen. But I think if you're worried about a near extinction event, that's...
So I know nothing about this other than my only window into it. I knew a contractor who worked on one in Washington, in the city of Washington, D.C. Right. And I remember him telling me about a power box, like a transformer box on Constitution Avenue that he told me, because he worked on it personally, was actually the exit, the egress from White House. That was kind of by vehicle. I thought that was, I was like, really? He goes, oh yeah, no, I installed it, I know. And I thought, well, that's kind of crazy that in the middle of this big city where I was on Constitution Avenue every day, that you could build something like that without me knowing it. Under the VP's house at the Naval Observatory, same thing. I think most people know that. Next to my brother's house on Macomb Street in DC. But I always thought that was like preparation for nuclear war. Like, I didn't really think about it that much.
Some of it is, it's preparation for catastrophe.
So, but you think that there are facilities like that in other places outside DC?
Oh, yeah. So if you're interested, we have a great interview. I did an interview of Richard Dolan on underground bases on the Solari Report, and it's sort of an introduction to the topic, and it's based on a lot of the research of a guy named Richard Souter, who is very hard to interview. So Richard kind of went through all the material, and clearly it's, I don't know if you ever saw, Washington Post did a project, it was in 2010 or 12, called Top Secret America. And one of the reporters, it was a team of 2 reporters, one of them put together a database of all the different top secret installations that had been built in the country, including since the Patriot Act. And what you saw was just this explosion of money in building so many both underground and above ground facilities.
Okay, so there we go, chums. Pretty interesting stuff. Now, this is one of these giant underground facilities, and there's multiple condos inside of here that you can purchase. They're about £2 million, and they're not massive. You could just about throw a cat in one of them, but it has got an indoor pool, sauna, it can self-sustain itself with food. This is one of the condos that you could buy, and it's worth 2.5 million. I mean, it's a fair size in a roundabout way, but pretty darn crazy stuff. That's actually a screen, not a window, that just broadcasts what's happening outside, inside for you. Yeah, so pretty darn freaking crazy stuff. But this isn't the only underground facility that's been built. There is a company called Iron Mountain. You've probably seen their trucks moving about the country, and they actually have a giant underground Iron Mountain that they've created. I can find you some tour video of that. One moment. Okay, so this is the Iron Mountain tour. There's a few different videos of different facilities owned by Iron Mountain that have done tour videos, and it looks a little bit like something out of Raiders of the Lost Ark once you're in there. There's multiple different archives, from film footage to costumes, all sorts. But there's also lots of doors inside of Iron Mountain, and some of them have got seals, like government seals, that people don't recognize, like some sort of secret facilities with inside already a secret facility. This is crazy. I mean, you saw the amount of film there and stuff that's being housed inside of this. Now, a lot of it is said to be archived, so if there is ever a doomsday event, at least all of humanity's history is recorded and kept safe inside of this, a giant vault of sorts. Now, there's also an Icelandic seed bank that's been created that's got seeds of every single plant on the planet stored there just in case of a mass extinction event. So here's a load of videos on the Salvard Seed Vault. Now, trying to get some sort of tour inside of here, it looks fairly similar when you see the inside of it in comparison to what we was just looking at for Iron Mountain. But this looks like some sort of Bond bad guy's lair, doesn't it? It freaking does. But yeah, similar sort of thing. Very sort of archivey. But they are making these vaults for human history, and also seeds and all sorts of other stuff. It makes you wonder whether they know something that we don't. Now, that previous lady talking to Tucker Carlson did mention a pole shift, and a pole shift is long overdue, and that does seem to be the thing that keeps ringing out. Whenever I do my research, pole shift keeps popping back up time and time again. And the whole reason that I'm doing this video was off the back of a previous video I did that I mentioned about pole shifts and this prediction that somebody has made inside of a Japanese manga that may be happening as soon as July 5th of this year, or at least that's when things might start, July 5th of this year. So hold on to your seats for that one. Okay, now it's not just massive corporations or people building all these sort of like condos underneath the ground for people to buy, or like everyday people that can afford 2.5 million, that is anyway, if you call them everyday people, but also celebrities. Mark Zuckerberg has built a massive great big bunker over in Hawaii. There's a whole video on it there if you want to hit that one up, which is a little bit odd. In fact, this one is only like 50 odd seconds long. Let's just hit it anyway. There you go. We need some
in
volume.
Hawaii.
No, I
freaky.
Let's just
He's
rewind that.
Speaking of Mark Zuckerberg, did you hear about the house he's building in Hawaii?
No, I
freaky. He's building this very secretive compound. He's spending over $200 million. Walls all around this property so no one can see what he's doing. Everyone working on the site has to sign an NDA. Through permitting and some of the plans got leaked. Basically, it's a mansion, but underneath it is a bigger mansion. The walls are made out of metal and concrete, glass doors.
No.
They have their own room where they can grow their own food. They have their own water supply. And one of the things had an actual nuclear glass door.
He's getting as far away from civilization as you possibly can be.
The idea, but with being in Hawaii, is I guess you want to be surrounded by water.
Just unreachable, probably.
But also having the benefits of being a U.S. citizen.
But what's creepy is this guy in New Zealand who builds underground giant bunkers. He's had over 11 billionaires build bunkers in New Zealand. And it's a reoccurring theme. It's like, I think they might know something. Speaking of...
So, as you can hear from that, there's not just Mark Zuckerberg. There's a lot of celebrities that can afford to build bunkers, building bunkers. And that's a little bit unnerving, to be honest, considering that it's all sort of happening at the same sort of time. Now, even Joe Rogan has got an element here. Why are billionaires buying bunkers? I haven't watched this one. So this one, let's watch it together, people. Let's have a quick listen.
Hey, can you just text Elon real quick? He knows. He talks about no writing before 10,000 years, and then he's saying it afterwards, and he's talking about deep rabbit hole. I listen to what he says. He's careful with his words. And, I mean, since we know there's been 5 interglacial periods over the last 450,000 years, this is the topic. You want to see something else? President Trump said it too.
What did he say?
I have the video on my laptop. It's only 30 seconds long. If you YouTube Donald Trump on climate scientists, basically they're talking about global warming, and he basically interrupts and says, "It's going to cool for us, though, isn't it?" And the scientist is like, "Oh, that's not what the evidence shows." And he kind of laughs. He goes, "I'm not so sure you know that." And I'm like, of course he would know. People are like, "Oh, Donald Trump's anti-science, he's stupid." I'm like, he didn't just pull that out of his ass. He was saying
when
something.
he was the president?
Yes, this was just a few years ago. This was probably his last year of his term. I have the clip on my laptop. It's a 30-second clip, or maybe 20 seconds. He said, "It's going to cool first, though, before, isn't it?" And I'm like, I look at what Musk is saying and this evidence of the pole shift. I think that the true data on Earth is that the Earth is cold most of the time. That right now we should be grateful that it's nice and cozy because we can live when it's warm. But I think that the data might indicate that Earth is cold more often than it's hot.
Well, that's what Randall Carlson has said. And what Randall Carlson said that really freaked me out, he goes, global warming's not scary. He goes, global cooling. That's what's really scary.
Well, there are photos and artistic impressions of the Thames in London freezing over and people ice skating on the Thames. Now, that's not happened in my lifetime. We're talking about the 1700s. So, yeah, I believe it's cyclical. I think we're due for a cooling before it gets any warmer. Also, I'm pretty worried more so about this whole thing with methane coming up in pockets in the northern hemisphere. That's worrying.
But we're so concerned with our own guilt and impact because of industrialized society and what sort of impact we're having on the climate and the earth and our air, and then there's this narrative that just gets repeated over and over and over again, this fear mongering, and everyone gets freaked out. It's not to say that we aren't polluting, we certainly are. Not to say that we shouldn't improve, we certainly should. Sure. Yep. But if the fucking magnetic poles might shift and we might get hit by a giant rock from space, we might have bigger problems. Yeah, and we're going to be concentrating on nonsense, which is really par for the course with human beings. We're going to be concentrating on these things that we're really not going to fix over the short term. When something might happen that it makes all of it a moot point.
This is what the doomsday people say. Were you going to say something good?
Yeah, I was just going to say, that's the analogy is a great one that from my friend George Howard says. It's like we're sitting in a car arguing about what channel the radio's tuned to, but the car's sitting on a train track, and the train's coming eventually. Because the climate change that we're going to get from catastrophic impact or any of these other events that inject kind of energy in from the exterior system. I mean, just all of this current discussion pales into nothing. And then
there's super volcanoes too, which happen all the time. Look about Yellowstone. Yellowstone's overdue. Yellowstone is a continent killer. I mean, we have no safeguards in place. There's no...
We're lucky that the last essentially 10,000 years, with a couple of little blips, things like Burkle Crater, we've had really calm, pleasant weather for most of it. I mean, that's why our civilization has risen. Because if you look at the temperature record and the swings from cold to even colder and back again, I mean, it's up and down. There was all sorts of nasty things happening, more than 10,000 years ago. And ever since then, it's this pretty straight line. It's the reason that we're a civilization now. And because we think in such short-term time frames, human lifetimes, or even just a couple hundred years, we just ignore that stuff. But if you extend the timeline out far enough, these things are going to happen again. And we should probably be a bit more conscious of them. And
I repeat,
that's the threat.
Someone must No. If there's enough smart people, they should be investigating this. I'm like, what does Elon know? What do other people know? Like, some people speculate that the reason for such brazen, poor behavior involving spending with the government and the economy and the U.S. dollar and all these things like that, some speculate, it's totally conspiracy, that like the powers that be know something's coming, and so they're just going to keep things going until then. Because the way things are being run, it makes no sense. Like,
well, the World Economic Forum is taking place right now at Davos, and Klaus Schwab and George Soros just pulled out of it.
They did.
What do you make of that?
They went to the bunker.
Yeah. They're digging some pretty big holes in Colorado, and there's a lot of bunkers in New Zealand too that are owned by billionaires.
There's big holes in Colorado?
Oh yeah, I mean that's also the Cheyenne Mountain, and that's where all like the nuclear command is and stuff, and they've been from sources unknown. I can also tell you that at some point I've eyeballed this, like an RFP, request for proposal, for people to develop basically drone systems. You know that the movie Prometheus, where they threw the drones up in the tunnels. There was an RFP for people to develop tech like that because the government was interesting. The premise was that they wanted to be able to fight in underground cities.
Fight?
Yeah, like as in for the military. We want to be able to map terrain and have these drones that can navigate in underground space without GPS and map the environment, because it's the combat situation was fighting in underground cities.
Okay, now that is news to me. I did not know any of that until I just watched that with you guys right now. I sped that up at 1.5 times or 1.25 times or something. Yeah, and just so I hopefully don't get flagged on that one. But yeah, interesting stuff, people. I don't know what you guys out there in the viewerverse make of all this underground base stuff, or whether you do think that there's something happening with inside of our planet, or something that could be threat level. I mean, they did mention a giant asteroid approaching us, which we know is en route around 2028. But it's supposed to be a miss, you know. There's a good chance it's going to miss. There's a far wider chance that it's going to miss than hit. But it does make you wonder if every single time I hit up one of these videos, they talk about the pole shift, a magnetic reversal of our poles. But it's a pattern that I'm seeing over and over again. It's a pattern that I can't ignore. Sound off in the comments. Let me know what you guys in the viewerverse think. Do you want me to do a video just dedicated on the pole reversal and flip or reversal of our poles and what it might mean for us? Because I have watched some pretty good content on that. It's a little bit unnerving, to say the least, but sound off. Let me know if you want to see more. Till next time, goodbye, and goodbye again.